My topic of discussion is about my research paper. My research paper was about Jonathan Edwards and David Brainerd and the influence that they had on one another. It was interesting to go through and read all the articles about the two men and see all the similarities between them. They were both God-fearing men that believed that the scripture was the most important thing and followed their principles even if it meant something terrible might befall them. David Brainerd was expelled from Yale, and that happened to be the same time that he met Jonathan Edwards, because Jonathan Edwards was at the commencement, which David Brainerd wasn't allowed to be part of. When you look at their lives, the description of the two men are so similar. I was reading David Weddell's article about David Brainerd, and he was calling him the melancholy saint, and that reminded me of Jonathan Edwards' personal narrative, in which he had so many bouts with depression. Even though they were God-fearing men, they still had their own personal battles, and in this case, their battles were very similar. And another author, Barry Bracy, I'm sorry about that, Hill, he called David Brainerd an evangelical icon. Well, we certainly have heard that word used a lot about Jonathan Edwards. So it was interesting to me that both men, 300 years after their deaths, are both still considered evangelical icons and very much part of theology today, and definitely worth studying. Jonathan Edwards in particular, but David Brainerd was an inspiration to Jonathan Edwards as well. So both men have a real important place in our religious history, and their theology is so important to us as well. Such a shining example of living a Christ-filled life. When you think of Matthew 25:21, his Lord had said unto him, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." Well, both of those men were absolutely the epitome of good and faithful servants. It was also something I was interested in reading about was David Brainerd's burning commitment for the Indians and for their salvation. Jonathan Edwards was interested and did work with the Indians, but when he saw all the work that David Brainerd was doing, it inspired him to do more. So the friendship between these two men was mutually beneficial. Jonathan Edwards was an inspiration to David Brainerd, but in return, David Brainerd did contribute to Jonathan Edwards. And they were two different generations, so that was kind of remarkable in and of itself. And when David Brainerd died so young, it inspired Jonathan Edwards to write about his life. And his writing about David Brainerd's life is the most popular work that he has ever done. That is very interesting, because he put aside other things that he was working on because he felt it was more important, and God was telling him to work on the life of David Brainerd instead. And certainly that has proven to be very important, because it was so widely read and has never been out of publication since it was originally published. That is amazing. In 300 years, it's never been out of print. Both men, inspirations to everyone, definitely personal inspirations to all of us. It's been very interesting reading about this entire course. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a great class.